Welcome to World Prism. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In early 2025, the North American auto industry was rocked by a sweeping 25% tariff on all imported vehicles, a move that sent shockwaves through boardrooms and assembly lines alike. The announcement came, seemingly, overnight, catching many automakers off guard and forcing them to scramble for solutions. The tariff, imposed by President Trump's administration, was part of a broader effort to reshape the American economy and bring manufacturing jobs back to U.S. soil. The administration argued that these tough new rules would protect American workers and industries from what it called unfair foreign competition. This move aimed to force foreign automakers like Honda, Toyota, and Volkswagen to ramp up U.S. manufacturing or risk losing access to the world's most lucrative car market. For many companies, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The new policy threatened decades-old supply chains that crisscrossed Canada, the US, and Mexico, disrupting the flow of parts and finished vehicles that had long defined North American auto production. For Honda, the US is its largest market, nearly 40% of global sales, many of which were built in Canada and Mexico. These factories had been optimized for efficiency, taking advantage of lower costs and open borders. The new tariff made it financially impossible to import these vehicles without massive losses or price hikes. Suddenly, every car crossing the border came with a hefty new price tag, threatening profits and consumer demand. Honda and its rivals faced a stark choice: absorb the cost, pass it to consumers, or overhaul their entire North American strategy. Boardrooms buzzed with urgent meetings as executives weighed the risks and potential fallout. The era of seamless, tariff-free trade was over. The new reality meant more paperwork, more inspections, and a lot more uncertainty for everyone involved in the industry. Companies now had to prioritize building in the U.S. to survive. New investments in American factories became urgent, as automakers raced to adapt to the new rules and avoid crippling tariffs. For Honda, this meant a painful pivot, unwinding years of investment in Canada and Mexico to protect its U.S. market share. The company faced tough decisions about jobs, facilities, and its future in North America, as the industry braced for a new era of uncertainty and change. By May 2025, Honda announced a dramatic overhaul. CR-V production would leave its longtime Canadian plant in Alliston, Ontario, and move to U.S. factories in Indiana and Ohio. The HR-V, previously built in Mexico, would also shift to the U.S. Honda's goal: 90% of vehicles sold in America would be made in America. The reason was simple: avoid the crushing tariff and stay competitive. The move wasn't about Canadian or Mexican workers, it was pure business survival. Honda also decided to build its next-generation Civic Hybrid in Indiana, not Mexico. In weeks, Honda redrew its North American map, consolidating production inside U.S. borders. The message to the industry was clear: market access now trumps free trade. The tariff's impact went beyond gas-powered cars. Honda shelved an $11 billion EV and battery plant planned for Ontario, dealing a huge blow to Canada's green ambitions. Officially, Honda cited slowing EV demand, but the timing made clear the tariff was a major factor. Building EVs in Canada for export to the U.S. now carried too much risk. The loss crippled Canada's hopes for a $15 billion EV industry and thousands of future jobs. Suddenly, Canada's dream of leading the next auto revolution was in jeopardy. Honda's recent decisions have created two starkly different realities for auto workers on either side of the border, highlighting the growing divide in job prospects between the U.S. and Canada. In Canada, Honda assured employees at its Alliston plant that there would be no immediate layoffs. But beneath the surface, the real blow was the loss of future opportunities, especially the high-tech green jobs that were supposed to come with the now-canceled electric vehicle project. For many, it felt like a promise of progress had been quietly erased. Overnight, thousands of high-skilled, well-paying jobs vanished, taking with them the hope that Canada could become a leader in the next generation of automotive manufacturing. The dream of a modern, sustainable auto sector faded, leaving workers and communities facing an uncertain future. Meanwhile, the story in the U.S. was dramatically different. Honda ramped up production, announcing plans to boost output by 30% and hire hundreds of new workers in Ohio, Indiana, and Alabama. American plants buzzed with activity, and the mood among workers was optimistic. The tariffs were having their intended effect, drawing jobs and investment back to American soil. U.S. workers saw new opportunities opening up, and communities that had struggled with factory closures began to feel a renewed sense of hope. Honda doubled down on its U.S. electric vehicle strategy, investing $1 billion to retool its Ohio plants for EV production. In partnership with LG, the company committed another $4.4 billion to build a new battery plant, a move expected to create over 2,000 new jobs and secure the region's place in the future of green manufacturing. While construction and investment in Canada's EV sector ground to a halt, the U.S. surged ahead, with new assembly lines and battery plants springing up across the Midwest and South. The flow of capital and jobs shifted decisively southward, fueling a manufacturing boom in the American Midwest. Towns that once faced decline now buzzed with new construction and opportunity. In just a few short months, tariffs and corporate decisions had redrawn the map of opportunity in North America, reshaping the future for thousands of workers and their families. For Canadian workers, the future now seemed clouded with uncertainty. But for their American counterparts, the horizon was suddenly bright, filled with the promise of new jobs and a revitalized industry. The timing couldn't have been worse for Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Just days after taking office, Carney found himself at the center of a storm that no one saw coming. The country was still celebrating his victory, but the mood quickly shifted as troubling news broke. Elected on promises of economic expertise and steady leadership, Carney was immediately hit with a major blow: Honda's decision to shift production out of Canada, along with the loss of a highly anticipated electric vehicle investment. The announcement sent shockwaves through the manufacturing sector, threatening thousands of jobs and raising questions about Canada's competitiveness in the global auto industry. Now, Carney faces the daunting task of protecting Canadian jobs and convincing Washington to grant a crucial tariff exemption. The stakes are high, as the livelihoods of countless families hang in the balance. Negotiating with the U.S. is never easy, but this time, the pressure is even greater. The political pressure is intense, with critics calling the Honda decision a failure of economic diplomacy. Opposition parties and industry leaders are demanding answers, while protesters gather outside government buildings worried about the future of their communities. Carney must balance projecting strength at home with finding a practical solution with the U.S., a high-wire act with no easy answers. Every move is scrutinized, and the margin for error is razor-thin. He must reassure Canadians that their government is fighting for them, while also keeping diplomatic channels open with Washington. The crisis forces Canada to confront a hard truth. Its economic future is deeply vulnerable to U.S. political decisions. The flow of goods, jobs, and investment depends on a delicate relationship that can shift overnight, leaving Canadian industries exposed. Carney's response in the coming weeks will shape not just his legacy but the fate of Canada's auto industry for years to come. The choices he makes now could determine whether Canada remains a key player in the global automotive market or faces a long road to recovery. Honda's rapid pivot signals a seismic shift for the entire North American auto industry. For decades, automakers relied on integrated supply chains, engines from Mexico, assembly in Canada, sales in the U.S. Trump's tariff shattered that model, forcing companies to build where they sell, especially for the U.S. market. The fallout is continent-wide. U.S. workers gain, but Canadian and Mexican jobs are at risk, especially in parts supply. Companies now face duplicated investments and higher costs, with less efficiency and fewer choices for consumers. The transition to EVs could slow, as automakers hesitate to invest in a fragmented, uncertain market. The North American auto world is fracturing into national silos. The era of seamless, continental production is over. The 25% tariff has forced a rapid, painful reordering of the auto industry. Honda's shift to U.S. production and its cancelled Canadian EV project are just the beginning. The U.S. is set for a manufacturing boom, while Canada faces economic setbacks and a stalled green transition. The integrated North American auto network is giving way to a fragmented, less efficient system. Higher prices and slower EV adoption are likely as companies duplicate efforts and hedge against political risk. The events of 2023, 2025, show how quickly politics can upend economic reality. The North American auto industry has entered a new, uncertain era, one where national interest, not free trade, drives the future.